right, welcome back to part 2 of our conversation with designated drinker and president of Harmony Group, Matt Hetrick. So if you missed part 1, please go back and belly back up to that bar and give it a listen first. You don't want to miss a single word of it, I promise, because we're going to pick up, it's going to get lively, and Jean's going to save a seat for you, so don't worry, right?
That's right, absolutely.
So let's jump right in there. Let's pick up where we left off. This is funny. I knew this is what's going to happen because if everyone knows, this is a script and this is exactly what I wrote. Let's back up 2 seconds just in case somebody missed it. What is Initiative 82? And then let's pick that back up.
There was an initiative a couple years ago called 77. Now they passed it last year called 82. And the way DC law works is you can get in the primaries a ballot initiative. So anybody who wants to change the law in DC will typically go get a bunch of signatures, put it on the Democratic ballot initiative, right? And then because 90% of the city votes a certain way, if you write it a certain way, it gets passed, it goes into law. The council can turn it over, which they did with 77, which was the same law. And with 82, all they did was say, hey, listen, we're gonna phase out the tip credit. And the way the tip credit works is like there is a minimum wage for all people. At all times, it applies to everybody exactly the same, except for tipped workers can be paid less money out of the pocket of the employer if their tips push them over minimum wage. So nobody gets paid less than minimum wage ever. That's not legal, no matter what. But for restaurants, they say, hey, look, y'all are gonna make like $40 an hour in tips probably. It's a lot of money in a market like DC, and frankly, almost everywhere in the country makes a lot of money in decent restaurants because we tip well now, and it is what it is. So it vastly exceeds tip to minimum wage, but in DC they got rid of it and said, hey, over the next 5 years, up until 2027, we're gonna phase it out and eventually eliminate basically the ability of a restaurant to pay only $5 out of pocket and let the servers keep their tips the rest. So that law is passed, and now we're dealing with the aftermath.
And the aftermath is going to get worse because you're going to have people that are going to drop out of the industry, and then you're going to not have anybody who wants to work as a server. And then you're going to go to a restaurant and stand there and look at the chef because the chef is like, here's the food, and I hope you like it, and can you clean up your plates?
Yeah.
That's really what's going to happen. Or that dinner's going to cost you $1 bazillion to eat it, and where you were going out maybe 2 or 3 nights a week will now become something that's more special, even for people that are making $100,000 plus, a year in income. This is not like, I'm saying, oh, if you're making,
We'll talk about the people. So first of all, the law doesn't change the fact that some people make minimum wage, right? So if we're going to use an example of like, hey, you're working at IHOP, people tip like shit there or something, and you're making minimum wage at the end of the day, it doesn't change that for you, right? What it does is just change basically the amount that comes out of the restaurant's pocket. So, okay, you've done nothing there. Where you're feeling the effects is basically on all other forms of dining. Because what we talked about a second ago is if you have $100 that comes into the restaurant, $90 of that goes out in the best case average scenario, right? Most scenarios are worse. A lot of restaurants just aren't that profitable because they have expensive leases. They have like a lot of stuff that happens. You already have the inflation of ingredient costs. We all are dealing with inflation, but people feel really bad about passing that through, so they kill their own margins. So at the end of all of this stuff, if you add 10% of costs to a restaurant, like 10% of their gross sales, right? Not 10% of like what they were spending before. Now you took 90% of the cost, you added 10, you spent 100% in the best case, right? Most of them are now losing money. How do you offset that cost is the question. Most people that sign a lease for 10 years don't want to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
Like if you're asking Gina, hey, don't change anything, just do the old model, pick up this cost, you want to go bankrupt. And like she's like looks at her kids. How old are your kids?
They're 8 and 9.
Okay, so how does she say to her daughters who are 8 and 9, like, fucking sorry, we're gonna go live on the street because I signed a lease 5 years ago and somebody changed the law on me?
Yeah.
That's bullshit, right?
It is.
And people are like, oh, just raise your prices. That's fucking bullshit too, because why are we changing the prices on the consumer who also didn't want to pay more, so that like the server who was making $40 to $50 is now gonna make 60, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what does that really change their life? That's not how it's going to work, though. Yeah. That's the main thing. It's not just going to be that way.
The consumer is not going to go in and have to pay. Like, I have bagels, right? Imagine a bacon, egg, and cheese went from right now in my menu, they're $8.08 with tax. Okay, I have probably the lowest price in Washington D.C. right now. Most of my competitors are at $10 and $12 for a bacon, egg, and cheese, which is very high, right? but they're smart because that's what they're paying. They're doing their wages, right? I am trying to like combat the fact that like, to be there your everyday kind of thing, right? When you walk into Buffalo Burger, are you going to be happy paying $17 for a sandwich, right? So today, Louise had sticker
For a
shock.
breakfast sandwich?
Hold on, she had sticker shock today, right? Turkey, bacon, club sandwich, $17.70. Okay?
It's a lot of fucking money for a sandwich.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
but that's your new reality based on all the things that are happening.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be that way. And we're not exploiting our workers. We're not exploiting the workers. That's what the people in the industry don't understand. This is not about exploiting the workers. This is about a union, for me, a union that wants to unionize restaurants, right? And become like everything's a hotel, serve shit on a plate like a hotel does,
Yep.
and get away with it because guess what? They're going to say the ingredients are going to be the things that will begin to suffer. It'll be,
Oh, absolutely.
You will get shittier quality stuff.
Yeah.
It won't be as cool. It won't be these things. It won't be farm fresh. It won't be all of the things that you want because it's not possible. So, unfortunately, people are asking for the impossible. Serve me. Give me all the things for a minimum price. And I'm not going to tip you. Oh, you're okay. Well, you just, well,
What universe?
welcome to I don't know where.
Yeah.
So it's not going to happen. And then you think you're doing such a great job that you're now pushing it out to other places to also overturn the law. That is just
Well,
so
it's
stupid.
Like the reality of it is it's a hot mess to adapt to. But like if you go back to the very premise of it, it's like an absurdity that is like really frustrating because like if you go to the replacement for Rock, like the set of people that are promoting this and pushing it around, right? Like, and they have papers that aren't, I think, well done and a bunch of things of that nature. But the core premise is really simple, right? Which is tipping at its core is not just a legacy of sort of racist and systemic racism, right? Because they'll trace it back to the Civil War, post-Civil War, and Reconstruction. That it carries those things today. So that basically if you're not a white man, you're going to suffer under tipping because you won't make the same tips if you're, say, like a single BIPOC woman as a white man would. And I'm not sure what studies they look at when they do that. But I tend to think that if you cherry pick certain data or if you look at stuff in aggregate, like if you were like, hey, I'm gonna look at the workers, like all black women, as an example, right? Well, I'm sure a lot of black women servers also work in restaurants that like serve like clientele that doesn't tip as well as other places. And then you compare the two side by side. I feel like in the payrolls I see, you just don't see these disparities between the people. And it's not one or two, it's hundreds of payrolls. How come my payrolls that I look at are the only ones that you just don't have those problems, right? I question the premise, not that there are like systemic issues or like that there are varying like sort of outcomes in tips like people probably do, but I think there's two problems here. One is under what set of like realities do you take away the agency of the person in a like a fully functioning market? I'm not actually against like unionization as a core thing. Like if you were working a couple months ago during the strikes like with UAW and the big car companies, right? Like there's only 3 of them. You're in company towns. You might need representation to be able to negotiate with something like that. You're in DC. You want to like work inside of like an incredibly competitive industry that just doesn't have pricing power. You can quit same day. Happens all the time in the restaurant industry, right? You can get a job same day. So you have the ability to move around. It's a more fluid labor market than probably any other market in the world.
Very true. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So like,
Well, that's an interesting thing you just brought up. Now, does that mean that like when you become a server in a restaurant, do the at-will change and then now you have a service contract with somebody because now you're going to be there and I'm going to invest this many dollars into your training, right? And that you're not going to leave the job, right? So if you're in a union situation, you have to have 3 grievances, blah, 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 whatever. You just can't quit. Like it's under like a lot of people's opinions as a union, you could just quit your job. Nope, that's not how it works, right? You have to do the union's guaranteeing your labor, saying you take this union on, these people are coming to work.
Yeah.
Great. And then you can't just go where you want to go. So now are we taking away people's freedoms when it comes to working in a restaurant?
That's the whole thing. Like what you're saying is basically, hey, And like I feel like it's super sexist and super racist to be like, hey, black woman, you're too dumb in a totally fluid like labor market to make your own choice about where you want to work.
Yeah.
And the environment that you are willing to accept for the compensation that's there. And if you feel like you need to do that and patronize them, like I just don't agree with that.
Yeah.
It's like you can take the job or you can not take the job. You don't need to come in and like coddle people, but even if you thought you did, how in the world are you accomplishing something that's in that woman's favor by taking away her federal protections, taking away her money? Right now, like a year ago, if you worked in a restaurant in DC, what would happen is you'd get paid like $5 an hour, and all your tips belong to a pool that only belong to you and your front of house brethren, right?
Yep.
So that's why they make $50+ an hour. And if you want to work that 5-hour shift on Friday night and make $300 or $250 or something, good for you. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to be there. But now you're going to take away the ability to pick up that shift, not pick up that shift, to own those tips. That's federal law. You've taken it away. Because what happens is the moment you get to full minimum wage, right? They're not saying this, they're lying about it. Or if you look at their stuff, the moment you get to full minimum wage in the city, tips don't belong just to the front of house. They belong to the whole service staff that's not managers. So if you don't see what's coming there, what will happen is the restaurant owners, as they no longer can charge a 10-15% service charge and expect you to tip, we'll drop it back to like, hey, fine, like we're gonna charge a bunch of money, you're gonna tip on top of it, right? But they're gonna take the tip pool and they're gonna say, well, I already pay you $17 an hour and we're gonna split it 50-50 or something.
Yeah.
And you have taken the same pot of money and you will now have taken it away from our example woman that we're trying to protect from herself and her own ability to have agency, and you're gonna give it to other people. Right? Which was always like a problem in the industry. People were like, front of house and back of house don't make the same. It's not fair. They work so hard, et cetera, and that is a real challenge. But to take it away from her, to give it to that dude over there, like, how is that solving a fucking problem?
It's not.
Yeah. The other solution to it that restaurants, that I think is incredibly disingenuous and dangerous, is that there's plenty of restaurants that are trying it and tried it before, and I think erroneously, they went straight to a service charge, right? So you go, you don't tip, you just get a full 20% service charge or something like that. There's a couple problems with that. One is that a service charge is just revenue to the company. You can call it a service charge, but an auto gratuity and a service charge are not tips, right? They don't belong to anybody but Gina, honestly. Yeah. Gina can decide to do whatever the fuck she wants to.
I don't do that. Everybody, just make sure. Yeah.
But you know what you do? I think we should just let's bring it down a notch. Let's get a cocktail and pick it back up. What do you think?
I love that.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. Hemingway Daiquiri, probably one of my most favorite drinks ever. I love it. I love to mess with it. Like at the holidays, you can add different things to it. You know, cinnamon, cardamom, cardamaro. We're gonna add that today. But it's such a rich history of cocktails. You know, Hemingway Daiquiri, it's obviously named after Ernest Hemingway. And it's because he ordered a daiquiri and he asked for double the amount of booze in the daiquiri. And I always found that to be so amusing. Because they, you know, he'd ask for the Luxardo in it, the grapefruit, and then a 4 count of the rum. And it was just like so, the idea of like that was the way that he was. And like you can just see how, you know, he would write, you know, a story just being that fucking shit-faced, right? But you also have to realize, you know, he's in the middle of like what, you know, war-torn cities and, you know, totally fucked up and doesn't care and holds all these other writers and reporters. And he's like, don't worry, we're just gonna drink this and it's gonna be great. Well, I had the luxury of going to Puerto Rico, and my friends at Bacardi gave me one of the Bacardi Superiors, and it's really nice to have that. And I actually broke it out because I felt like this was a really great time to make the drink that's really more, you know, unique and time appropriate for today. So let's start making this cocktail. So we are going to make this with, so in theory, it'd be 1.5 ounces of white rum. We're going to do 2 ounces of white rum. So we're making 2 of these. So we'll do 4 ounces of rum. And just keep in mind, this would have been a single for Ernest Hemingway. So if you weren't sure that you loved him, well, just think of it this way. He could be in a war, write an entire story, report on the war, and drink these all day long and be totally fine. The man, legend, really. And then you're going to put in, a 1/2 ounce of Luxardo. If you don't know what Luxardo is, it's Italian cherry liqueur. Each drink, just a 1/2 ounce. It's very strong. Do not like overdo it. And then we're gonna take 1 bar spoon of cardamaro. If you've been following us this holiday season, I've been using a lot of the card Amaro. I really love it. Any Amaro in here would be great. Basically, you're gonna put in 2 bar spoons, or that would be 4 dashes. If you're that fancy at home and you have your Amaros in a dasher. So like, that's really very nice. Okay, so you have that in there, and then we're gonna add our grapefruit juice. I do not have my my juicer with me today, so we're gonna actually hand squeeze these, and you can use a fork, you can use all kinds of stuff, or if you have bare claws like myself, you can squeeze the fruit. And I know these people, so it's okay. I would never do this at my bar, so don't worry if you're going to Buffalo Burger the last call, I'm not squeezing your fruit and maybe touching your juice, but I know these fine folks, and whatever I have and whatever they catch from me is fine.
I happen to like it when she squeezes my juice with her bare hands.
when she's bear clawing my fruit. Anyway, so we're gonna put in, you're gonna put in 3/4 of an ounce of fresh grapefruit juice. Now the reason why you're gonna actually squeeze this with a hand juicer, or you're really looking for the oils that are coming from the skin as well. It just makes for a better cocktail, and it's delicious, right? So we have our grapefruit juice in there, and now we're gonna add 1/2 ounce of fresh lime juice. Again, you're gonna be doing this with, fresh limes, right? Fresh is best, but you need the oils. The drink will not be the same. It's impossible. Okay, so we're gonna add our liquor to this, and we're gonna grab some ice. You can do the garnish ahead of time if you want. The garnish is a flag, which is with lime and cherry. You can do it as you want, but one thing that you should do when you're making this cocktail is ice down your glasses beforehand, because you're spending all this time building, shaking, straining, squeezing. Putting it in a hot glass is a travesty. Okay, here we go. Nice little froth on top. Smells good, looks good. We're gonna double strain this because I don't want ice shards in there. If it was like outside, I probably would leave them in there because you want it nice and cold. Such a beautiful drink. Easy. You can make it your own, a little bit, variations on it. And I think that's what I really love about this cocktail. It's like, it doesn't have to be exactly the same. And I'm pretty sure when, like maybe Ernest Hemingway was throwing, booze in a cup, that each one was uniquely different based on what might have been happening around him. Or I just made that up. I have no idea. Also, does anybody know why Ernest Hemingway's cats have 5 toes? I don't know. Do you know, Louise?
I will.
You're gonna Google it? The old Google. Google could lie to you and no one would ever know anymore. It was like, okay.
It's just a study says.
Study shows.
My research says.
I mean, I heard it was for incest, but All right, so we're making a little flag, which is basically when you take a cherry and you put it between citrus. Anything can be a flag as long as you follow that motto. And that is it. That is the cocktail. I do not have fancy. Anything could be a skewer, see? I do not have my fancy skewers. I didn't do anything right today. I don't even know.
I'm sure this
the
cocktail
holiday
is right.
season is really taking a toll. Cheers.
So Gina, this cocktail, once again, come on, man. Drink these all day long.
Like, let's be clear, I did not invent the Hemingway Daiquiri, right? I love the Hemingway Daiquiri. I make them properly. I do what I'm supposed to do. I also busted out a very, very expensive bottle of Bacardi that you can only get in Puerto Rico, and you have to pick it up, and there's not that many of those kinds, right? But...
Thank you.
But adding a little bit of Amaro to these cocktails and changing it up a little bit is really cool because it definitely lends itself, and also makes it more seasonality. And I said this before, not everybody in the United States or anywhere around the world celebrates Christmas in a cold environment.
Yeah.
Right? So like some of us are in Australia and it's hot. So enjoy these things and make the holiday season your own.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What do we do this week in Thanksgiving? Make the same drink?
You know what's really great? You can make it's not a Hemingway, right? I put it's not a Hemingway, but I make it with bourbon exactly the same.
Oh, I love that.
It's really good. And I'd say, I'm gonna make not Hemingways, and everyone's like, yes.
What's a good bourbon to use this?
Honestly, I just switch it up with like some.
Or something?
Yeah, like something easy,
Like-
Maker's Mark, something like 80 proof, like
like
90
lots of
proof.
sugar in it?
Yeah, not too much
like the bitter.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Don't put a rye in
yeah.
there. It tastes
Yeah,
like
yeah.
crap. Like, you won't even taste anything.
Yeah.
You only taste the rye and grapefruit competing for like competing for like not flavor. Yeah, unbalanced.
So where are they going to go to get this recipe?
You're going to go to designateddrinker.show for this recipe and tips, tricks, how to. Also, a link up for Harmony CPA. I think that would be really cool, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're a restaurateur and you're listening,
Then I want to work with you.
There you go.
yeah, and this is really great. And you do not have to be in the DC area. As Matt said, he does all of the U.S.
Yeah, we're literally everywhere from Portland to Miami, Columbus, Nashville, Charleston, Boston, down in Texas. It's cool stuff.
Yeah.
So if you didn't catch that link, don't worry. You can just scroll down into our episode notes. We'll have hot links there for you. We'll get you to, of course, designateddrinker.show. All of the stuff is there. We'll get you a link to Instagram so you can see Gina's beautiful face and watch her in action. And then we'll definitely, like she said, have the Harmony Group there, link there in case you are a restaurateur looking for this piece of solace you seem to have, like this anchor.
Yeah,
Seems like a really good partner.
It's really important. It's very important for anybody that's in business, especially now, especially if you're in the restaurant business and everything's changing so rapidly around you. And also anybody that, like if you're in the restaurant space or you go to restaurants and you enjoy going to restaurants, it's okay to stand up for your like local restaurant, any
Absolutely.
restaurant employees and really be educated in what you're voting for. I think that like no one's really listening to the truth.
Well, I think when you were talking about that initiative on ballots in D.C., I mean, I live in Virginia, and I had an initiative that popped up, and it was as military, and depending on your retirement status, they changed that you would not pay for, depending on your medical retirement, in certain states, and Virginia is one of them, you don't pay real estate tax. And they added to that not paying personal property tax on your one vehicle. And they added that, and it came up on the initiative, and I went, yeah, I totally agree with that. But when you said that, I'm like, I never looked into, I don't know that there was any other negative side to that, but I never once thought about what else that would be. So I could see how somebody could look at that initiative on the ballot and not understand what they were really voting for. That's my point, is like, to your point, get educated, but I was guilty of it myself.
It's really interesting. I was thinking about this morning, because why the fuck not, right? But like, I've always thought, like, man, wouldn't it be nice in 2023 to have representative democracy kind of stripped away a little bit? Like, why do we need old ass politicians to represent us when we have the internet? We could vote on a lot of this stuff, right? And like actually sort of, like whatever it was, you could be like, do you want to send money to Ukraine? Do you want to build a wall? Do you want to do whatever stuff you want to do, right? Like, it doesn't matter. But we could all vote on everything, and you couldn't do that 200 plus years ago.
Right.
But then, like, I suppose this is the reason you shouldn't do something like that, because I'm not sure that politicians do a better job, but at least their whole job would be to have staffs of people that, like, research these things and think about it. And, like, it seems a little bit better than something like this, where all you have to do is write your ballot initiative a certain way, and nobody will ever, in most places, object to it, right? Imagine, like, I know I'm going to take it the wrong way here, but like, imagine you were in a super conservative state and you were just like, do you want to kill babies? Like, that's how you get rid of how you get rid of stuff like a woman's right to choose. However you feel about it or not, that's probably not how laws should be made. Just like changing something as fundamental to hundreds of thousands of people. And Gina's a good example. You sign leases for 10 years with options. That's a 10-year commitment. If it goes wrong, you go bankrupt.
Yeah.
That's your whole life. You don't get to come back.
Well, and if you think about society as a whole, no one not only a
saying that word.
but not only a restaurant.
What, Gina? No, I'm not saying you. I'm just saying.
But if you think about this on a greater
It's
scale,
true.
it's not just the restaurateurs or these individual entrepreneurs. When those businesses go bankrupt, jobs are lost, banks lose money, developers lose money,
Sure.
the area, the community in itself suffers.
Sure.
So it's not it's not just the restaurant entrepreneur issue. It is truly, it's greater than that.
Well, there's
It's a ripple
that
effect.
quote of like, the worst way you could ever make decisions is to let decisions be in the hands of people who don't suffer the consequences of bad ones.
Yeah.
Right. And I get
writing the check you can't cash.
Yeah. Like I get why if you're an activist hired by the unions, like the New York unions or like wherever they're from, the hospitality unions want members, right? As a membership drive. Cool. Got you. That's their job. They should be doing this. That's literally what they're here for their members, is to make it bigger so that they can advocate on behalf of them. Okay, but then you hire activists who like come from an opinion of like, hey, this is racist, sexist, blah blah blah. I don't care about the outcome necessarily. I just want to change this system, and they don't. When was the last time they were a restaurant owner? When was the last time that they like counted on that $200 this week to make rent? Right? They're not college kids. They're not like whatever, and over what? Because like you feel like. Maybe they worked in the restaurant, maybe they weren't. I don't actually think a lot of them did, because these are like Princeton kids and stuff like that that grew up to be, activists. Like you're fixing a system that the people weren't asking to fix. You shouldn't be fixing it because it's not your system. I work closely with the RAMW.
Yeah, that's local, and then we have the National Restaurant Association.
But I mean, are they lobbying for you in this space? I'm sorry, I should have said, are they in?
They are. So the Restaurant Association.
It's an impossible fight is the problem.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Because
Yes.
if you ask the question, it's a really good point.
It's a great question.
You're like, where's the restaurant lobby? There's the National Restaurant Association, and there are like local ones. The RAMW is in So Washington is RAMW, Maryland is RAM. There's a Virginia one. There's one everywhere. But the problem is, how do you fight a question like, hey, do you think that people should make $5 an hour in a world where that doesn't come close to paying the bills? Nobody would ever say, yeah, and you can frame it like, oh, we want to get rid of like businesses being able to pay $5 an hour. You don't know you don't understand how this is working and why, or the ramifications. And that's the problem, is like, you just can't fight against that fight. They tried it once through technical measures, and they won it the first time. The second time they tried, but they knew that they would lose, and they did. The problem for us, my big problem, the reason I get so loud and passionate about it, is the workers that are being hurt ultimately, and you won't see all this stuff play out, but you see it.
Coming.
It's in the process of it, and you can see it in the Washingtonian and stuff. Sidman's writing about stuff like, like how frustrated diners are versus the restaurants, right? You can go back in time and look at like, here's the 4 ways this will play out. We're right squarely in one of them, which is, well, there's a hot mess version. We're here. And nobody's really winning, but like the workers will basically lose out in this system, because when you take away their rights, their fundamental federal rights to own their own tips, that's the only thing you're ultimately doing here, then you fuck them, and maybe they get union representation after that to like re-protect them, but you've like taken away a system that protected
that they
them.
have to pay into. Everyone's forgetting the other thing. If you're a unionized workforce, you have to pay the union. Right. So really what the union just did was figured out a way to make it so that you were going to give them, not only you're making less money, but now you're going to pay into it. And this is what's so fucked up, but nobody is listening to the people that are telling you this is what's happening. And you're so like, oh, but I'm helping everybody. You're not helping anybody.
Right.
So because you saw an Instagram ad?
Let me ask you
because
this.
your whole like political views are on a blip on your phone that is literally learned what you like to watch. Yeah. And it's like, oh, she likes to watch things about Democrats and blah, blah, blah. Let's give her all the Democrat information. Then your phone knows who you are.
So this is a problem, and this is obviously a major problem. What does one do? And not from an outsider. What would...
Shit. Nobody knows. What could you do? I'll give you this. Tip people the same as you used to. And
start there for sure.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, like the service charge that you get, like everyone's frustrated about these service charges. And I want to like draw a line real quick. There was a pre-I-82 service charge type, and there's like the post. The pre, I probably sound like some like crazy person who's like against the union or some shit like that, right? I'm not. I'm like just for the workers. So before I-82, what I was doing with clients left and right in my own restaurants, I didn't mention that I own some restaurants, but we do service charges. But what we do with the service charges is pay for health insurance for our staff. We pay for training. We pay for extra things. No, like a lot of places didn't offer health insurance, and I think that's really important. So we had like a 3 or 4% service fee. It allows you to do that. And I fight tooth and nail against even my own managers who are like, hey, guests are mad about 4%. I'm like, fuck them. Go away as a guest. Like, just don't come back because health insurance is more important. I need to take care of my people. That was the pre. In the post, the whole world is very simple. Like, the restaurants have two choices, basically. One is like, hey, pass this through in just price raises and ask for tips or service charge. Pass it through, alternatively, that you could pass it through as a partial service charge and still ask people to tip. That's the two choices. And ultimately, it's going to come back down to, it's like that airlines, right? Like, Southwest prices everything in, and some people like that, and it's like everything's included. And some restaurants are like, some airlines are like, hey, every single bag you bring, we're gonna charge you $40. People got used to it eventually, but it's not better. It's like more money.
Yeah, this flight's $99 plus.
You ever fly Spirit?
Plus. Yeah, you can't even have a piece of gum on food. It's like, oh, do you bring gum?
Better bring your change.
Gum's $15.
Bring your own toilet paper kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is it.
Okay, here we go. This is how I know if you ever listened to our podcast before or not. So we have a final question, right? So in this day and age, everybody, identifies with some sort of spirit animal, right? So you might identify with a squirrel because you're always squirreling away your nuts and, counting everything you have, right? If you could be one spirit ingredient, whether in cocktail.
All right, we're going with a spirit ingredient.
Yeah,
okay.
It's either a cocktail or food. What would your ingredient be, and how is it like you?
Oh my God, I'm gonna say something cheesy. I don't actually know.
No, whatever pops in your head is the right answer.
What popped in my head was octopus.
Great.
Because first of all, I love octopus. It's my favorite dish everywhere. Riss.
Yeah. No, tell me why it's like you.
All right. Anyway, whatever. So, octopus is my favorite thing, like all the time, and octopi are super smart and they have lots of hearts.
Aww.
Yeah,
that was really good. That's the first time anyone ever said octopus.
It is the first time. Yeah.
Guarantee.
Yeah, it's the only time anyone's ever said octopus.
They say a lot of things, but that was really amazing. We always get lemon a lot.
A lot of lemon.
A lot of
Peppers.
garlic.
It's a much more personal dish ingredient than octopus.
I didn't know that octopus have multiple hearts. How many hearts do they have?
As many tentacles.
Several. Yeah,
I don't know. I just made that shit up. Let me
They
Google it. I'll
definitely
find out.
have a couple, right? Yeah. Or brains or something. I'm pretty sure hearts.
They have multiple something.
Yeah. I don't know. Also, don't they have movies about octopi and they're so
yes,
sweet?
They think there's a theory out there that they actually are alien.
I believe that.
That would probably work for me too.
Listen,
Look, they don't have any hair. It's just like me.
Yeah.
For your podcast people, you're like, he's so fucking bald. It was shining the whole time. I couldn't see.
They weren't so tasty. Maybe aliens are tasty. I don't know. There's some fucked up planet eating aliens.
Oh my God, that would be the worst alien ending story ever. You end up in a fucking Earth and you're just stuck in the ocean and getting eaten all the time by humans.
I didn't even ask to come here.
God.
Exactly. Maybe it's like
we're
there Australia. Maybe all the bad aliens get sent down to Earth.
All right, so since it's warm down there.
So you're saying Earth?
Oh my God, that's true. They're like the convicts of alien life and are thrown into the Pacific Ocean or something.
Also, this would be the best comic book ever. Get Neil to write it.
Oh my God, I love that so much.
All right, I say we go find a drink elsewhere.
Yes.
Continue this. Happy holidays. Thank you for spending your
Cheers.
time
Happy holidays.
with us.
Safe travels.
The Designated Drinker Show is produced by Missing Link, a Latino-owned, strategy-driven, creatively fueled production co-op. From ideation to creation, we craft human connections through intelligent, engaging, and informative content. Also in the Missing Link lineup of podcasts is Roger That, a podcast dedicated to guiding you through the haze of dementia, led by skilled caregivers. Now, if you're looking for a whole new way to enjoy the theater, check out Between Acts, an immersive audio theater podcast experience. Each episode takes you on a spellbinding journey through the works of newfound playwrights, from dramas to comedies and everything in between. Find Missing Link's League of Podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And while you're there, please don't forget to follow, download, and review the shows. Your reviews help our shows reach new audiences. To find out more about Missing Link, visit missinglink.company. That's missinglink.company.